Hello and welcome to our panel discussion asking the question, should Israel surrender the Golan Heights? Now that question comes on the heels of an announcement by Benjamin Netanyahu that under no circumstances does Israel intend to give up the Golan Heights. And of course, it led to a scathing remark by Hezbollah against Israel for that declaration. Our guests today, Mark Vandermas, Bill Smythe, and Rod Hembry. I'm going to start with you on this one, Rod.
This is an interesting situation because I was in the Golan Heights and it was fascinating. And I was there back in '91 and I was looking down and seeing everything. And there was a gentleman with me who was part of the Israeli military and he was explaining some things, which I can't really repeat, but he was saying some things about the 6-day war or the 7-day war and all that stuff. And what happened was I began to pray and I began to think about this, and God spoke to us at that moment that this was the land that was Israel's. And so that became clear in my mind. So this has always been Israel's land and it's never been a problem. It's, and so now you have the Prime Minister of Israel saying, you know what, we're not going to give it up and that's it. And then you have a terrorist organization, I believe, a terrorist organization, saying against a government, which I would love to see this happen in the United States of America, but saying against the government that, he's terrible, he said it wrong, it's no good, that's ours. And it's amazing, it's stunning. I don't blame him at all. In fact, I don't even think he has to say it. It just is Israel's property. That's the way it is. And so you have this situation where the terrorists are presented as the official representatives for certain people that are against Israel. No matter what they do, they're against them. I don't think that's a valid response. I don't even think it's a response really worth saying too much about, except that you got to be kidding me. Really? I mean, that's really what I say about it. And the truth is that if people understood this, if they realized this situation, they realized where it's at and how it goes, then they would, it's like you say, would the United States surrender Texas to Mexico? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. So I think that this is something that is absolutely with the Prime Minister, and the Hezbollah has no chance.
Rod, there's something critical that you brought up there, your visit to Israel, and you were standing there looking down, because just over a year ago, I was in that same place looking down, and we could hear the ammunition going on below where Syria is. And I'm thinking, well, the opposition has taken over, so why is this gunfire going, why is this military fire going on? And it was ISIS and the opposition. When you look at the strategy of the Golan Heights, it will be suicide for Israel to give that up. It's such a strategic height and location that I cannot imagine what would happen if Israel ever surrenders that property. In fact, just on that same visit, while everybody was sitting on a bus and touring along, the sky was blue, I saw this little dark cloud, and I'm wondering, what is this? And then these little military helicopters flying by, and I'm looking at this thing, and then news broke that it was Hezbollah that attacked the IDF in an unprovoked attack, killing 7, and that was from the Golan Heights. Well, Hezbollah is funded by Iran, which was just, this deal with Iran where billions of dollars in terrorist funding is now available to go right back into Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and all the other terrorist organizations surrounding Israel.
It's really important for viewers who don't really know too much about the history to understand that the Golan Heights were used. I mean, Israel's been under siege and at war since she began, practically, and Syria has been participated in several wars against Israel. And the Golan Heights are used to lob mortars and artillery down on to innocent people there. It actually was part of ancient Israel, the tribes of Israel, and it's just outrageous that somebody wants to suggest that in a time of in the Middle East crisis or collapse, that the Jews should suddenly turn over strategic land that was used to attack their civilians to a failed state on the urging of terrorists who are also going to be probably a state that's probably going to be taken over by ISIS if they're not stopped.
Yes.
And I can't imagine that any reasonable person would suggest that as a possibility, except for the fact that they happen to be Jews. And it's another example of blatant Jew hate, and it's disgusting. So no, don't give the land back, Mr. Prime Minister.
In fact, in June of 1967, the Israeli cabinet. This was shortly after they took control of the Golan. They actually voted to return the Golan Heights to Syria in exchange for a peace treaty. Well, what happened in September of 1967? There was the Khartoum Declaration, issued by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Algeria, Kuwait, and the Sudan. And what they said is, we're going to keep fighting Israel. And so, of course, that never happened. And since then, as both of you have pointed out, the situation has only got worse.
Yeah.
If Israel were at this point to get out of the Golan Heights, they'd be facing some combination of ISIS, Iran, or the Syrian state, if it ever comes back again. And it would just be suicide, as you said.
Well, it's analogous to Israel seems to have a problem with its generals getting into politics, because you had Moshe Dayan turned over the Temple Mount to the Jordanians, and then you had can't think of his name now. I should know his name. Aric Sharon. He gave Gaza back. Gave Gaza to essentially to Hamas terrorists, so they could send rockets over, and evacuated it. So this idea of land for peace is just—it's
a very sad state of affairs. I mean, Israel was overrun in 1967 and 73 by Syria, and then officially in 1981 was annexed by Israel and came under heavy American criticism in the 1990s. Yes. Imagine if they'd listened. The threat of Al-Qaeda and ISIS? Imagine if they listened. Why is Israel always under pressure internationally to save its own state? Who tells Canada what to do domestically?
Because they're Jews. Everybody thinks they can
dump on them.
They're Jews, so you can dump on them and you can tell them whatever. Because this nation is a nation that God has ordained, and He's not finished with it yet. I mean, this is amazing. It really is.
I'm with Rod. You know, when the U.S. gives California back to Mexico and gives back Texas, then they have something to say about it.
What I said was they should give it back when India surrenders the Punjab to Pakistan.
Well, I think that just about closes our discussion. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Please share this video, and on YouTube, click the button below to become a subscriber.